I recently compared the Xbox Series X against its younger sibling, the Xbox One X, and I found out that the One X has still plenty of use left in its tank. So what about the One S? Can this nearly decade-old console still deliver affordable gaming, or is it time to upgrade? Let's get right into it. Alrighty, but we have to be clear about one thing. The Xbox One S is not for everyone. Looking to play the brand spanking new AAA games natively? How about fast performance and fancy graphics? Or loading times that actually loads before your multiplayer match have actually begun? If you're certain that you absolutely need these things, then the One S is not the console for you. However, you can sort of fix two problems on this list, which we'll get to soon. So, if we then take a look at the prices this console is going for, it could very well still be a bang for your buck, depending on your perspective. Because the One S will only set you back around $60 give or take, which is quite a lot of technology you're getting for the price. Now, sometimes you might have to do some digging depending on the current state of the market. But a good rule of thumb is that you try to avoid spending more than around that $80 mark, since the One X isn't much more expensive and its performance gains are huge. And if it would happen that you're interested in how the One X holds up till this day, we got you covered in a fully fleshed out video in the top right corner. So then, what about the performance and graphics that the One S delivers? In one way, the answer is actually quite straightforward. Its age is starting to show. Performance dips are quite common and graphics struggles to keep up. But on the other side, it actually depends on what you're deciding to play on the console, because several games are actually performing surprisingly good. For example, Forza Motorsport 7, past Call of Duty games, Fortnite, and the list goes on. Alrighty, and here we have the specs of the One S. By comparison with the regular Xbox One, we'll see that there aren't massive differences. To make it easy and simple, the key differences between the regular Xbox One and the One S is that the One S has support for 4K upscaling, it's packing a slightly faster GPU, while the console itself is packed in a smaller size. The One S also got a 4K HDR optical Blu-ray drive. And my favorite, no chunky power brick. Then we have the One X, which is a monster in comparison, with a GPU packing 6 teraflops. That extra power makes a real difference, especially when it comes to delivering higher resolutions and smoother performance. So all of that is what's written on paper, but how does it actually perform in a real-life day-to-day basis? Let's start by having a look at our favorite game we like to show here on the channel, Shadow of the Tomb Raider. This game is not only one of my favorite ones ever made, but it utilizes the hardware to its fullest potential, and can give you a good idea of what the One S is packing in terms of performance. Running at 900p 30fps, we can see that it sort of holds up visually, but performance isn't always perfect. However, if we take a listen to the console's noise after 15 minutes of gaming, we'll notice that it's actually quite decent. Especially after taking a look at how the PS4 sounds after the same gaming session. Jesus. But man, the load times! The hard drive is not a speedy fella. If only there was something that could solve this issue. Hey guys, welcome to Odeboo doing Teardowns Part 2. Let's begin. Oh. Oh my... Well, nice. There we go, fellas. Whoa, it's so fast, holy shit! Anyway, the last thing I want to do after coming home after a long day is to stare at a fucking load screen. So, the SSD upgrade in my opinion is not mandatory, but definitely something you should consider. And now when I've finally gotten my hands on the Series X with its crazy fast SSD, I'm spoiled with it and there's absolutely no way I'm going back to a regular hard drive. Now, comparing the One S with the regular Xbox One is near pointless since we won't see any differences. Maybe a couple of additional frames on the One S and that's about it. However, remember that I said that the One X usually isn't much more expensive than the One S, and how much more of a beefy GPU the One X has? Well, Shadow of the Tomb Raider is a game that really pushes the consoles to their limits. With its 4K 30fps, it delivers amazing visuals that I think looks very close to the Series X graphics. And even if you don't own a 4K screen, the difference is still noticeable on a screen that doesn't support 4K. Taking a look at this village, we'll notice that there's a great bump in detail and sharpness on the One X. Or how about this scene in the nature? Everything from the textures to the lighting looks incredible on the One X. So, adding the Series X to the comparison, we'll see clear improvements, with the One X stepping up from the One S and the Series X pushing things even further. That said, the One S still serves as a decent budget option, while the One X offers a noticeable step up in visuals and performance. Although it's worth to mention that the Series X is running on a buttery smooth 60fps, while the other ones are locked at 30fps. So, even though the One X and Series X perform significantly better, the One S will still deliver an enjoyable experience if your demands aren't too high. So then, what about FPS games? Let's have a look at the latest Black Ops 6 for instance on the most intensive map and... oh, well, at least it's faster than a toaster. To be fair, I expected it to run a lot worse, but the experience still isn't quite enjoyable. The FPS can reach numbers above 30, but since the frames are inconsistent, it makes for a lot of stutters. Meaning that you'll now actually have a valid reason to complain when others outplay you, but anyway. At least Zombies is quite enjoyable since it's locked at 30fps, and stutters are less frequent. Still, bringing in the One X to the field and whoa, god damn, it's literally night and day. Not only is the performance much better at a stable 60fps, but the graphics are also surprisingly good. So for the optimal Black Ops 6 experience on last gen, then there's no doubt that the One X is the one to go with. But where the One S really flexes its muscles is with older AAA Xbox One classics like Forza Motorsport 7 or Battlefield 1 running at a stable 60fps. And in several modern indie games, such as taking your very regular road trip in Road 96, which is stable but unfortunately at 30fps. Or if you're feeling nostalgic, you can dust off those Skylander figures and hop on some good old Portal-powered chaos. And it's an absolute beast for playing a ton of Xbox 360 titles. But if you're determined to play every single one, maybe you want to snag an actual 360. The point is, there's still a lot of games that the One S will still handle quite well. So let's crank it up a notch with the last game we'll be testing. How is the One S going to handle Red Dead Redemption 2? Similar to Tomb Raider, we'll see significant differences, as it ran at 864p with 30fps. It's playable, but maybe not the most enjoyable experience. Bumping up the console one more step to the One X and we're back to the gorgeous 4K 30fps, which is a great way to enjoy these story-rich games. Nevertheless, the One S will run the game without any hassle. Well, except for some minor FPS drops and if you can live with the graphics, because it's a bit outdated in my opinion. How the One S performs is only half of the picture. since it's nothing without its games and capabilities. So, as of speaking, the Series S and X have received an okay amount of exclusive games over the years, however, most of which are no more than mediocre in my opinion. Still, several new games are cross-gen compatible at a cost of graphics and performance. Also, you can play a ton of games via cloud gaming if you're subscribed to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, that you otherwise won't be able to play on the One S. So at least you have that opinion on older hardware. Either way, if you're okay with a somewhat smaller game library than the Series S and X, then the One S could be ideal for you depending on how much you value performance. But you can still get a sprinkle of the current generation because you can use the newer Xbox controller on the One S. And the user interface is also still up to date. It's perfect if you wanna hook up some Spotify or YouTube on the TV, as it still runs well. Perhaps a tad bit slow with the hard drive installed. Nevertheless, this is an especially great way to give a non-smart TV some of that smart TV vibes. The One S still blends in nicely to today's modern world with its design. Coming in at 2.72 kilograms, this is a relatively small and light Xbox compared to the regular Xbox One and the Series X. It's light enough to lug over to a monitor when you're in the mood for some gaming at your desk instead of slacking on the couch. In my opinion, it's also a good looking, sleek, and an accessory-friendly console, with its generous port selection and a 4K disc drive. So, with all things considered, I reckon you only get the One S if you're specifically looking for a way to enjoy gaming on a budget. If you have a grasp of the games you wanna play and it works on the One S, then the One S is still a valid console considering its low price point. Though the slow hard drive can be a pain in the ass since games are getting bigger and takes longer to load. But you can always smack an SSD into that bad boy. So, depending on how you're going to use it, it can easily serve a couple more years of entertainment. Gaming isn't always about having the flashiest and most expensive gear. For me, and probably many of you as well, it's about having a good time and escaping reality. And the fact is, there are those who are still rocking the One S. And this console still gets the job done in many cases. Now, that's great and all, but what about the One X? The One X is a console packing a significantly better GPU than the One S, along with other improvements. As mentioned before, in most cases, the One X is usually only a couple bucks more than the One S on the used market. And the performance gap between the One S and One X are quite large for the small amount of extra cash you have to put up for the One X. And naturally, if you're looking for the latest technology to play the latest games with the best graphics, then it may be time to upgrade to the Series S or X. But if you still can't make out if the One S is the right console for you, then we have a video on the left walking through how the One X is like using as of today. And on the right, we're comparing the old powerhouse with the new powerhouse, the One X versus the Series X. Alrighty. Thank you fellas for sticking till the end, and here's a special message from my cat who specializes in doing sellouts.